Hey there guys, and welcome to Cryptocurrency Australia, and today we're going to be discussing Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, considering Bitcoin Cash for a data availability layer. Now this gets pretty technical, but it kind of brings into question the overall progress on Ethereum 2.0, the layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum, its progress, and the fact that they are musing, or at least discussing potentially using other chains to offset or at least expand the capabilities of the current chain while the overall development is still ongoing for the Ethereum main chain. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing this article in detail. We're going to look at some comments from some other people in the industry, and then we're going to look at some other data as well. So stick around and let's get into the video. Welcome back to the video, everyone. You're here with Bo Stoner from Cryptocurrency Australia, the channel where Bitcoin economics and politics comes together. And today we have Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin considering Bitcoin Cash for data availability layer. TLDR, Bitcoin Cash's BCH, high data throughput, very low fees, comparatively cheaper block verifications, and friendly developer community are all pluses for Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin when considering a short-term data availability layer for the world's number 2 ranked cryptocurrency by market capitalization. Ethereum co-founder considers Bitcoin Cash for data availability layer. On the Ethereum research blog, Vitalik mused about the possibility of using BCH as a scalability solution. Under a sharding subheading, Buterin took account of the pros and cons in determining short-term scaling tools other than on the native ETH chain for now. The planned answer is more than a year away, Ethereum 2.0, due to its throughput being higher than that of any existing blockchain. That's where BCH arguably fits the bill perfectly, according to the Ethereum co-founder. In the shorter term, however, we can start working on these techniques immediately by using existing blockchains, particularly those that have lower transaction fees per byte than Ethereum, as the data layer. It's not the first time Buterin has taken an interest in Bitcoin Cash. Back in April at the ETH Cape Town conference, he spoke glowingly. Bitcoin Cash, I think, is underrated at this point. If you follow the community, they've become considerably more sane ever since they've expunged bad actors, and they're getting Schnorr signatures ahead of BTC. They have a lot of real technical talent in there, and it's getting interesting. Furthermore, Ethereum developers have begun cross-pollinating with BCH, such as Roscoe Callis and his work with CashScript. The general principle of these techniques, Buterin continued, referring to scalability, is that they use interactive computation techniques to compute the state on the Ethereum side, crucially relying on the data availability verification guaranteed by the data layer to make sure that fraudulent submissions can be detected and heavily penalized. One could use techniques like this to make a highly scalable general-purpose EVM-like system. Bitcoin Cash offers high data throughput at 32 megabits per 600 seconds, which is 53,333 bytes per second, compared to Ethereum's approximately 8 kilobytes per second, which is already being used by applications, Buterin explained. Very low fees, whereas BTC would be prohibitively expensive. We already have all the machinery we need to verify Bitcoin Cash blocks inside of Ethereum thanks to btcrelay.org. We just need to repoint it to the BCH chain and turn it back on. Verifying BCH blocks is also quite cheap compared to ETC blocks. The Bitcoin Cash community seems to be friendly to people using the chain for whatever they want as long as they pay the transaction fees. And he highlighted Memo.cash as an example. Cons for using Bitcoin Cash include its 10-minute block time, which Buterin believes can be mitigated by tools such as zero confirmation and avalanche preconsensus. If these techniques become robust for the use case of preventing double spends, we could piggyback off of them to achieve shorter finality times, he elaborated. Buterin also considered Ethereum Classic, but his eyes seem to be trained on Bitcoin Cash for the moment. No word if or when this will become more than a thought experiment. So I find this particularly really interesting. That Vitalik is considering Bitcoin Cash. And the reason is because many in the crypto community are very ideologically fixed on one or another. Vitalik was a co-founder of Bitcoin Magazine and wrote about Bitcoin for a long time. So one would assume he would be ideologically driven to stick with Bitcoin, but he showed a lot of this I guess, interest in Bitcoin Cash, which personally surprises me. However, I myself am the kind of person that will often say, don't let ideology cloud rational judgment. So if he's just being completely rational, if he's being objective and saying, Bitcoin Cash can offer these capabilities while we're still developing Ethereum 2.0, maybe that's where he's coming from. But what gets me as, someone with a technical background myself, is that when you introduce a second system into an architecture or into a design or whatever, you can exponentially increase the possible failure points, right? So let's say you have Ethereum here. This is the Ethereum chain. This is one system. You have control over this system, while over this system is isolated in terms of the applications or data being built on it or being pushed to it. But the moment you introduce a second system, you have a second layer of complexity. You then have to be worried about redundancies and failure cases on the second chain, on the second system. So you're introducing a whole new layer of complexity into that system. And as we're going to see in a minute, it's in the blockchain world, especially with proof of work chains, the amount of hash rate being contributed to a system or a blockchain is an extremely important metric to understand from an investment perspective, or if you're building an application, because the hash rate determines how probable or the level of incentive for someone to gather enough resources to attack or hack that chain. But before we go on to that, let's look at some comments from some people in the industry around this move from Vitalik. So here's one from Groobles on Twitter. Groobles is quite well known in the Bitcoin space. You can follow him at @notgroobles. And he said here that Buterin basically is saying that ETH 2.0 is not right around the corner. ETH 1.0 can't and won't scale. No one is using Bcash, and he thinks it's a good idea to use Bcash as a temporary ETH landfill. I would be a little concerned at this point. And I must agree with him, definitely in relation to the ETH 2.0, because this has been worked on for a long time, for many years, and it still doesn't look like it's around the corner. And here we are in mid-2019, and there's talk of using other chains to offset some of the requirements for ETH 1.0. And I would have to agree, it is a little bit concerning. Now, when we come over here to look at things like network security, the thing we look at in crypto is the hash rate. Now, when we come over here and we look at Bitcoin Cash's hash rate, which essentially you can think of as the number of computers out there working to enforce the network, just as a very kind of layman's terms, basic way of describing it. Bitcoin Cash's hash rate is 1.919 e-hashes, which I believe is exahashes. So remember this figure, 1.91. Now, when we come over here and look at Bitcoin, the Bitcoin hash rate, we can see here that it is 68.062 exahashes. So exponentially, considerably more hash rate, computational power, computers contributing energy to keep the Bitcoin network secure, whereas Bitcoin Cash has got a mere drop in the ocean compared to Bitcoin. The reason why I'm bringing this up is this is important if Ethereum are considering using the Bitcoin Cash chain to offset some of the system requirements, then things like network security should be taken into account. But you have to remember, there are thousands of applications built on Ethereum. It is a whole ecosystem now. It's not just the Ethereum chain running in the background, holding a token and maybe a few bits of data transacting on the chain. It literally has thousands of applications, businesses and companies built on it and using it for various applications. So any decision to use another chain really should have consideration as to additional system complexity, which I'm sure Vitalik and the team have thought about. I'm no software developer. They're software developers. I'm not. I'm just talking from like a high level technical fundamental standpoint. But they should be taking into account things like this. And I must admit, I think it is a little bit concerning for Ethereum at this point that they're considering using a chain with such a low hash rate to offset some of the requirements for ETH 1.0 when Ethereum 2.0 should be here, should be delivered by now. So I'm not really sure what's going on in the background. But anyway, guys, I'll be following it. And if there's any updates to this, I'll be sure to pass it on. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. If you enjoyed the video today, then please consider leaving a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then come on board and also click the notification icon so you're always kept up to date. Leave a comment and tell me your thoughts on today's content. Then check out this next interesting video picked just for you.